Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ad America, the U.S. Embassy's American Center. My name is Hasna Rohani. I am one of the guests here at Ad America, and I am ecstatic to host this event. And I would love to welcome our friends from Universitas Negeri Jakarta. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And also our audience members joining us here on site and also those who are watching us online. Right now, you are watching Inside Out: Why, When, and How to Tour in the USA. You can find out on how you can ace your career in the creative and performing arts industry from a discussion that we will be having with the industry insiders today, and how you can participate in the program that has welcomed important new voices into the national cultural dialogues, enlarging the world and sharing diverse global perspectives directly with communities in the US. But before we begin, let us hear an opening remark that will be delivered by the Public Diplomacy Officer of the U.S. Embassy Jakarta. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Kira Emmons.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited to see so many people here to enjoy a really informative and I think a bit unique discussion today. So thank you very much for coming. I'd also like to thank our friends at Center Stage and several different organizations that make up this initiative that helps people like you, people in different countries all around the world, options for traveling and touring in the United States as an arts group. The arts are a very important part of U.S. culture, and we're always happy when we have a chance to celebrate that and to help others understand how they can be part of what is a very big and very interesting and diverse ecosystem. As you saw in the video a moment ago, we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of U.S.-Indonesia diplomatic relations. That is really significant in a lot of ways. We have a good theme, democracy, diversity, and prosperity. And I hope that what you'll hear today will amplify in your mind what that really means, will help you understand how committed we are to our comprehensive strategic partnership with Indonesia, and on a people-to-people level, what that really means. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll enjoy an interesting and robust discussion. We will have time for your questions after, and really hope to hear what's on your minds as well. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Bukira, for the wonderful opening remarks. And now to get everyone ready, I have here a little interactive quiz for you. And the question for today is, true or false, the term performance art got its start in the 1960s in the US? You might type in your answer at any time during this session on our social media platforms. The lucky one who can guess the answer correctly will get a live shout out from us by the end of this event. Don't forget to do that because we like to get everyone actively involved in this event. And now, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to our lovely moderator. She is the Dance Committee and Philanthropy Commission of Jakarta Arts Council. Please give a welcome to Kenya Rizky Rinonche.
Check, check. Okay. So, hi everyone. Welcome to all of you. It's really excited for me to be a moderator today. So today, I'm gonna welcome for all of our audience member here at the studio and those are watching us online, very, very welcome. We're gonna explore together more about Inside Out: Why, When, and How to Tour in the USA. My name is Kenya Rinonche, and I'm a Dance Committee and Philanthropy Commission from Jakarta Art Council, and I will be serving as your moderator today. And we'll be hearing a presentation from three special guests from various backgrounds and experiences in performing arts, and I will gladly invite them to the stage. First of all, let's give applause for Didre Valente. And the second one is Fiona Coffey. And also Josh Marshy. So before we started, I want to take a few minutes for your time to remind that the questions open. So anyone who listen us in your house or maybe in the studio, just prepare for your question because we already open and allow you to question as much as you want. And I will be gladly to read those questions to them. And now, moving along to our session. Now I will sit with you guys. Now, moving along to our session, we're going to have our first speaker, Deirdre Valente. Am I right?
You are. Thank you very
Right.
much.
So, Deirdre Valente is a general manager for Center Stage and Lisa Booth Management, or LBMI, and served on grantmaking and curatorial panels in the US and abroad. Also a member of the Actors Equity Association, and also managed Broadway shows and international touring production in opera and theater. Now, just welcome Deirdre, and now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So we're here at the invitation of our Foreign Office, the U.S. Department of State, and in partnership with our embassy. We're visiting here in Jakarta and then going to Yogyakarta. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you and to have this opportunity to speak with you. So Center Stage is an initiative that brings us all to you today. And that initiative was started by our State Department in Washington, D.C. as a way to host artists from abroad in the U.S. Generally, as you know, our State Department and our embassies are primarily concerned with sharing America's story abroad, sharing American culture, information with you here. Center Stage is one of the few programs that really focuses on exchange so that Americans have an opportunity to better understand other cultures in the world by hosting them in our communities. It's what I call a small but mighty program. The program was initiated with tours first in 2012, and it continues to this day. It is what we call a public-private partnership. So it is funded by the U.S. State Department, but it is implemented by a number of performing arts partners in the U.S. The New England Foundation for the Arts is the primary partner. They're an NGO based in Boston. They're my boss for the project. My firm is a private performing arts producing and management firm based in the New York metro area. And we do other projects in addition to Center Stage. But for Center Stage, we are essentially the general manager. So we assist with curation. We handle all of the logistics. We are basically the line producer. But Center Stage works only when we are in partnership with organizations around the country who host performing artists in their spaces. And that ranges from clubs for music groups to cultural arts centers to colleges and universities. And so with me today is Fiona Coffey, who is with Wesleyan University, and you'll hear from her in a minute about how her program shares culture of all kinds with folks at home. Center Stage's first year in 2012 hosted 3 groups from Indonesia. Paper Moon Puppet Ensemble from Jogja, Jogja Hip Hop, and Nanjambang from Sumatra. And the reason for our visit today and this week is that we are very happy to be able to welcome Paper Moon back to the U.S. to tour again in 2025. So we're here to meet with them to talk about the logistics of that tour, the repertory, production, and also to start building some digital materials that will inform the context and provide some educational materials to Americans, and will also be available for folks at home here in Indonesia. Paper Moon is one of 4 companies that we will tour in 2025 as part of Center Stage. We will also be welcoming Kumarian from Pakistan, and Kurbasi from Ukraine, and Mohammed Abu Zekri from Egypt. Each of these companies have toured previously with Center Stage. So this is sort of our alumni season for Center Stage. Um, I think one of the things that is important to know about this program is that it is both a curatorial and a marketplace program. That is, we invite artists based on a set of criteria, artistic criteria, from countries that have been identified as of special interest to our State Department. There is a transparent review process. And then ultimately, we take into account some very prosaic things and also like budget considerations. We can't tour 1 million people. We can tour 40 people. We look for a diversity in terms of genre, in terms of outlook. And ultimately, then we are able to host each company in the US for a month. And in order to do that, we rely on partners like Fiona and other presenting organizations who host them as part of their regular ongoing season. So it's my job, basically, to serve as an agent for all of the center stage companies and book their tours. So in that way, it's really putting these artists into the marketplace, which is somewhat unusual for a state-sponsored program, where often you're placed somewhere. This is really more actively into the marketplace. I think that's probably enough time. I think I'll turn it over to you, Fiona, to talk about your work at Wesleyan and how you'd like to focus.
Yeah, thank you, Deirdre. Actually, there's an interesting point that I want to dig more, but maybe we can talk later on. And now we're gonna move to Fiona. Also, I think also a producer and a curators and also a academician and also an associate director for Performing Arts Center of the Art, Wesleyan University. And she worked with artists across discipline to help shape, develop, market, and tour new creative work, curates and produce the CFA's Visiting Guest Artist Series, present touring shows, and design and produce development residencies to support new work by visiting artists. Also, you work as a creative producer for a wide range of interdisciplinary artists, including Toshi Regan, Sunny Jane, Folklift Dance Work, and Laurie Anderson. I think Fiona here said as a director of creative programs for the Era Footwork Collective in Chicago, overseeing the vision and strategy of creative and educational programs in music, dance, fashion, and film. Okay, now your turn.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here, so thank you so much. So my name is Fiona Coffey. I'm the associate producer for performing arts at the Center for the Arts at Wesleyan University, which is located in Middletown, Connecticut, about 2 hours from Boston and 2 hours from New York, literally in the middle, the Middletown. And we're part of a sort of larger group consortium of university presenters across the United States. A lot of our universities here in the States have performing arts centers where they'll bring in touring shows, and they'll also take those artists and integrate them both into the curriculum across the campus as well as into our local community. So my job at Wesleyan at the Center for the Arts is to run and curate and produce our Visiting Guest Artist Series. And we bring in music, dance, theater, interdisciplinary arts from all over the world to our campus. And we'll bring them in, and we'll often have people for a week. They'll do some workshops, they might visit some classes, and then they'll do a performance in one of our performing arts spaces. And I think you may have seen in the slideshow coming in a couple of those different venues that we have on our campus. We have 3 major performing arts venues. We have a 400-seat proscenium arch theater. We have a 400-seat concert hall. And then we also have our World Music Hall, which seats about 80 people. And our World Music Hall was actually the first building built by a Western college to house a gamelan. So Wesleyan has a strong history and relationship with Indonesia going back into the 1960s when some of the sort of immigration policy in the United States changed to welcome a lot of South Asian and Southeast Asian immigrants into the United States, and we were part of a wave of universities at that point that started to build global music and dance programs. So Wesleyan built this incredible space to house our gamelan, which was given to us actually by the court here. We have an Indonesian gamelan here given to us by the court, and we have a special relationship also with classical Indonesian dance and music. We have several professors at Wesleyan who teach this form. And we also specialize in a lot of different sort of world and global music and dance forms. My other jobs as well, I have a couple different things. I also, as you mentioned, work as a creative producer. So I work outside of Wesleyan with artists to basically help them develop and tour new work. So two of the companies I'm working with currently are the Era Footwork Crew. They're based in Chicago. Footwork is, I don't know, I guess you'd call it like a cousin to hip hop. And it comes out of the south and west sides of Chicago. It's a Black American dance form. And it's a music and dance, music and sort of dance form and culture. So I work as director of creative programs, and I help work with that company, that collective, to tour their work across the United States. Actually, I have a DJ right now doing some footwork music at a dance club, I think right now in the UK. And I also work with another dance company called InDance, which is a Toronto and Connecticut-based dance company, and they do global and contemporary and queer interventions into classical Bharatanatyam Indian dance. And then I also have another hat that I wear too, which is as co-president of New England Presenters. So New England Presenters is a membership organization of arts presenters across the 6 New England states. And so I help help manage and create connections among our Northeast sort of arts presenters and build sort of relationships there as well. So a couple of things I guess I can talk about briefly, and I can see, yeah, there's a couple different slides here. Wesleyan University and a lot of the sort of university art presenters believe very, very strongly in interdisciplinarity and sort of the idea that artists and creative people are a really essential part of our world. We have a program called Creative Campus where we will actually bring artists into non-arts-based classrooms. So what that means is we might bring a dancer into an astronomy class. We might bring a musician into a sociology class. And there's a strong belief, and I believe strongly in this as well, that artists are the ones who can help us explore and examine difficult problems, the most complex kind of wicked problems that our world has, that artists have a really important and valuable role to play in that. So we might bring an artist in, a dance artist, who's gonna work with our astronomy students and think about some problem or some discipline or some issue in the classroom, but they're gonna do it through a creative lens. They're gonna do it through their artistic process, through their creative research. And what we've found this has really done is expand our students' understanding and their ideas of the world, their idea of how the arts and creativity, how artists like you all have a really important role in the world in helping us improve the world, help us imagine a better place to be. Trying to think what else I should say quickly. I think for me personally, when I'm looking at artists, when I'm considering with Deirdre and with others, people in the marketplace who we're going to be interested in bringing into the Center for the Arts, there's sort of probably 2 things that I would say for university art presenters that tend to be very important. And one, I think especially at Wesleyan, and things that I'm sort of deeply passionate about, is looking for artists who are socially and politically active. I'm really interested in activist artists. Artists who are going to come to our campus, who are going to connect with our students, our faculty, our staff, our Connecticut community, and are really going to be engaged in thinking about how they can change the world, how they can imagine a better or a different place, how they can create cultural vibrancy, cultural connection through the arts. So I work with a lot of artists who, and actually I think the Era Footwork Crew in Chicago is a great example of this. They are a footwork company, they're a dance company, they're a music company, but their mantra is footwork saves lives. They believe very, very strongly that their dance form, that their music form, going out into their communities in Chicago, teaching footwork, teaching this art form is a form of community resiliency. It is a form of community empowerment, and they are out sort of helping improve community health through dance and through the arts. So people who are socially engaged, politically engaged, are things I think that university arts campuses are very interested in. And the other thing I think as well, I would say is I'm very interested in artists who are doing interventions into classical forms. So at Wesleyan, we often will bring in artists who are maybe taking a classical art form, but are bringing some sort of contemporary new intervention or approach to it. And I think a good example of this, we're going to be working this fall with an electronic music artist named Jay Lin, who's also from the Chicago house footwork kind of jute traditions. And she's going to come in and work with our gamelan, and she's going to basically record sounds from our gamelan and create an electronic music library. And then she is going to be creating her own electronic music work with the sounds of our gamelan. So really kind of thinking about taking a traditional form and kind of moving it into the electronic music space, into the electronic dance space. So it's some different projects like that as well. I think I should probably stop.
Yeah, I think I write a lot and take notes from what you just told us about. I think it's interesting when you kind of like having a multi-role in arts, because actually in arts you have to be flexible. Especially I think here, especially university students will kind of like open their mind, because there's no specific or just one role actually when it comes to the management or maybe like the producer, the curators. Maybe we're gonna talk more about it. And now we're gonna go to Josh, who also lecturer and academician, but also an artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'll welcome Josh. He is the head of Dance Committee Jakarta Art Council. He has developed a movement research called Body Space, an artistic approach applied to the structure of his dance practice. And also he performed at Jakarta Dance Extravaganza 2019, Bintaro Design District 2019, and Salihara Art Season 2022. He also performing arts lecturer, dance art study program at Jakarta Art Institute. Now, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Kenya. Thank you for the presentation. So before we going through this big theme of the discussion, but I would like to point out there's an interesting title for today's session, which is Inside Out. It gives me a sense or a picture about how we could imagine the landscape of performing art ecosystem is always like a circulatory, the inside and then go outside, and then inside and outside. It's beautiful. And I think this is important for everyone to think this way, that when we talk about performing art ecosystem, it's actually involving every one of us. We are sitting here within this panel, and also everyone sitting on the audience, art students, art management students, and public as well. And then this is what I want to point out, that when I want to talk about a performing art ecosystem, it is as something that we are generates together and we moves together within this landscape, I believe. So this couple years in Indonesia, or yeah, specifically in Indonesia, we pay attention so much about what we could do to maintain, to keep the sustainability of our performing art ecosystem. So this is also, we could see it as a collective reflection to see maybe we should find a various way to experience a work or to work within the ecosystem itself. And then I learned for sometimes that in Indonesia there's a lot of initiatives, which a small initiative, a medium initiative, or a big initiative, which were moved by a community in every locals, as you guys familiar already, that Indonesia are like a super big country, and there's a lot of islands. We are basically separate to each other. We're not in the same one mass land, but we are separate. I mean, we cannot talk ecosystem only to think about Java Island, right? So we need to include in Sumatra, in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, etc., etc. And then I believe in Deidre also mentioned about Nanjombang. Nanjombang is a dance company in West Sumatra, and that's only one. And then there's plenty of them, of course, in Indonesia. But and then after we think about the performing art ecosystem, we should also think about is there's any interconnectedness between each initiative happen within in Indonesia, and then what kind of interconnectedness I want to propose that we not just build an operative interaction, but we should build a meaningful connection when we talk about a performing art ecosystem, and that's how maybe the way that we could maintain a sustained ecosystem. That makes sense, hopefully. So I'm also work in beside as an artist, I also work in a dance committee in Jakarta Art Council, atau teman-teman lebih akrab dengan Dewan Kesenian Jakarta in Taman Ismail Marzuki. In 2021, in the middle of pandemic, when everything almost stopped, then we see that there's not much things going on because there is not much platform to begin with. So, and I talk especially for dance department. And then among this chaotic time that back then, we all shift our practices to a digital realm. But of course, after that, we sort of like realized, oh, there is still something missing, especially when we talk about performing art. There is liveness that were took away back then. And then we're not trying to solve any problem. We tried to solve the problem back then, but we're not trying to change the nature of performing art. But okay, let's find the alternative. So then we somehow managed to create a platform named GCON, or Jakarta International Contemporary Dance Festival. It's a festival, but back then it was the intention of the festival is to facilitate artists to have a platform for them during the pandemic, because the work are there's a lot of experimental work with the digitals and stuff, and then okay, then let's do something about it. But then it makes us realize that the word dance itself might be supposed to be expanded, because now the dance itself is not just something that we experience, we watch on stage, but it is something that mediated by the screen, by the internet. And then, so what is dance, right? And then we questioning it, and it's interesting when we questioning it, it's open up the possibilities, how we perceive, how we experiencing, and how we should acknowledge dance itself is not something that really separate to our life, but it is happening in our aspect of our daily life. So I think this is the core of what we want GCON, or Jakarta International Contemporary, for it's being exists, which is to start a platform that could accommodate a more diverse perspective of dance itself, of choreography practices. And then it happens now from 2021 until today then. Yes, so there's this three things that we always want to point out about GCON, and hopefully it could represent about the performing art ecosystem as well, at least in my perspective, that we all need diversity. And then we all need the meaningful connection, and we should create a safe space as the platform. So GCON, within 3-4 years GCON happening, there's a lot of experimentation which is going on within the festival itself. Last year, into 2023, last year, 2023, uh, we held GCon, which is usually we doing it only in one big venue in Taman Ismail Marzuki in the Art Center, but last year we took a different approach. We did it modularly in separate locations, so we collaborate with campuses like University of Indonesia, and then we did performance in the old like a filming studio. So we make stage there, and then we did in a rural area. Yeah, we basically avoiding a proscenium or like a common stage to do. And then it's interesting. It's expensive, but it's interesting to do. And then it's somehow, but I think this is important because it gives us an access to experience dance, not and you know, like people in rural area in Kali Pasir Cikini. So you guys know Kali Pasir, right? So now you imagine people in Kali Pasir in this rural area, they don't have to go to the building, to the performing art building, to the theater, because the works are there, and the works are created not just by the artist, but the collaboration that happens between the artists and the people who actually lives there. So this is important for GCon as well when we want to think about performing art ecosystem, which is as something that we're moved together, not exclusively only by the artists as itself, but many lembaga apa, Pak? Many institutions and many people who really involve to move it together. So I give you a glimpse of what's going on last year. Yeah. So this is the work that we perform by Siti Alisa, which performed in the Produksi Film Negara. PFN is a filming studio in Jatinegara, if I'm not mistaken, in Jakarta Timur. And then we did this performance in a coffee shop. The work itself were Tarekat Kopi. Tarekat is the translation is the way of living Aceh society that they usually did a zikir or sort of like praying. And we also inviting a Singaporean artist, Shima Sabtu, to perform her current work, which Origin of Us. And this is, we invite Romo, a priest from Banyuwangi, to perform a work in University of Indonesia, which is also, which by then, we also make a sort of like a panel discussion about the spirituality, urban spirituality. Yeah. And of course, we would like also to open up the possibilities of collaboratives work like this, created by Iqmal. Iqmal is photographer and Daniel Espe is a choreographer, and they make the installation and performing. And this is in the Kali Pasir performance, which is created by warga, by people there. Yeah, and also, and then I don't know if we have a film students here, but GCon also held one of the longest running film festival in Indonesia. Well, it's only 6 years now, but it's the longest year running. But yeah, basically it's a dance film festival, so if you guys make a dance film, you can also submit it, and it's fun. Yeah. But I think I will pause until there, and then we could continue within the discussion. Thank you,
Okay,
Kenya.
thank you, Josh. Thank you for the insight. Yeah, I think when it comes to Indonesia and we're in the same committee, our focus right now is in advocacy and especially our expanded attention to the ecosystem that will support us around, because seems like we agree that we cannot do by ourselves. We're not working with just an artist. We're working with the marketers. We're working with the audiences and a lot of them. Maybe I'm gonna dig more. I will go back to you, Deidre, especially when it comes to the marketplace and then the booking timelines, venue types, info, materials, all of the logistic thing that you mentioned and that you prepare right now. How is it? How you manage and how you kind of like having, I don't know, maybe like a method or formula to really take into the details, because a lot of things going on, right? And sometimes we cannot really, what should I do first, and then where should I go next? And sometimes it's not a linear work, or maybe like a linear paper work, right? So maybe you can share to us on how you usually work on preparing a lot of things in terms of technical, and also about maybe the started from how you selecting and do the curatorial thingy, and then you start to decide in which artists you want to collaborate or you work with, and then after that you invite them to go on tour with you. I think.
Okay, that's a lot.
Okay, sorry. There's a lot. Okay, Deidre.
First, I wanted to say how wonderful it was to hear your presentation, Josh, because I think we're all actually thinking and working in similar ways. And that whether it was prompted by the pandemic or our own relationships to our communities, it's just, I felt like there was like a mirror and that you were holding up, and it's so nice to be able to be in a space to talk about those issues, which I think are central to so much of the work that we're doing in the US, that we are doing as individuals, and that our institutions are also looking at. And with that, I will say that that is one of the things that highly informs my work, and the work of a lot of us who wear multiple hats. I mean, all of us sitting here do at least 5 things publicly, and we probably do 15 things that we don't want to brag about, right? I'm sure that's true for all of you who are studying now, too. And one of the things that I always say is that let the art guide you and trust your instinct. There is so much good work being made, being explored, ideas that are being entertained, and and you can't possibly work with everybody, right? So you have to trust your own taste, what moves you viscerally, emotionally, intellectually. That's what I let be my guide, because then I can honestly, with an honest approach, think about how that work then could impact somebody else. Now, of course, with Center Stage, it isn't just about me, although it's a lot about me, but we want to be able to, with Center Stage has specific criteria. We are interested in working with artists who are creating new work, right? We're not working with cover bands. We're not working with people who are interpreters of work. You may be a fine performer of a Beethoven piano concerto, but our program is not for you. So not every program can do everything for everyone. So I think when you're thinking about issues of curation, it's important to be clear for yourself and for the artists you may be working with, what are your intentions? And to be focused in those ways. I think it's also fair to say that, in addition to sort of letting the art guide me, I'm always very conscious of what my pocket holds. And by that I mean, in an ideal world, I would host all the art that I love, but we do not live in an ideal world. We live in a world where it costs money to do things, and artists should be paid, and their work should be supported. So I'm always thinking sort of with the two sides of my brain, right? What my heart and my mind and my intellect are telling me, and then how to realize that in a way that is supportive of the community that I want to partner with and to invest in this work, and to enable the artist to be able to produce that work to the fullest of their capacity. So it's a highly personal thing, I think. And I'm sure that the reason why Fiona works with the artists that she does is personal. And it doesn't mean that there isn't good work out there that should also be part of that. But I think you have to make choices. So part of what I've learned over my career is ways that to be able to articulate the things that move me, and then to partner with artists who share a common goal, outlook, or purpose. Because then I feel like as a producer, you are a creative partner. It's your job to put the art out there, and to support that. And you can only do that, I think, if there's a strong match between your interests and the artist's ideals. So that's what guides me first. How do I figure out what comes next? I suppose, again, I let the artist lead, right? Some artists have a fully fleshed out idea of what they want to do. They bring some resources to the table. They have in their minds a trajectory for a piece or for a process. And so I try to figure out, how do I best match my skills to what an artist needs? Other artists come to you and say, I have this germ of an idea. I'm not quite sure whether it should be live, whether it should be digital, whether it should be collaborative. So then my job is to sort of help to tease out the ways that germ of an idea might be expressed, not necessarily in its final form, but to help figure out what are the ways, what are the processes, what are the means that an artist needs to get there. And so I found that over my tenure, what I try to do is just build the skills in my toolbox. Know how to budget, know how to network, think about the language you use when you talk with others about an artist. Figure out who audiences are, figure out what are all the tools you need in order to be able to help an artist succeed. And you'll call on different tools for different artists and for different projects. And they're constantly changing, right? I mean, ChatGPT is changing our world, right? In tons of ways. But I can tell you, I can spot a ChatGPT marketing piece from a mile away, and they suck. So don't think you can get away with that. But we're just constantly moving, constantly changing, and I think that's part of what's so exciting about this for the artist and as a creative producer. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, really helpful. Oh my God, I think I lost my patch here. Like every single paper is filled out. Okay, but yeah, I think I agree when you say that let the arts guide you, because really we cannot really predict what kind of arts that we are dealing with. So it's going to be like a different formula, a different negotiation that we have to deal with. And I think I come up to another questions that I want to ask Fiona. I think that here the audience and also Josh and I really want to know about how you get the support, because it seems like we do the curatorial and after that we want others to support what we think is good to show or perform. So how do you usually get the, I don't know, maybe like the funding, or maybe like how do you get the support from the locals, or maybe like the collaborators so far? Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, and are you talking about, so how do you receive the money to do a U.S. tour, or to do a tour abroad, is what you're asking? I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that you can get support. So one is certainly through a program like Center Stage that will offer funding and will help with the logistics for touring. There's different types of grants that you can apply to. I don't know if there are grants here in Indonesia that the artists can apply. Actually, Josh, are there? Yes?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, there is a grant. If it's the context for the touring, there is actually a grant specifically for doing a cultural interaction, and you can. Where's the camera? You can actually. Because this is a public service announcement, but because you can actually access it from cultural ministry, and then Dana Indonesiana. So there's under the specification of interaksi budaya, cultural interaction. So this is a specific grant for sort of like having touring for the transportation and accommodation, or if artists or groups of artists want to join maybe a symposium or a workshop overseas to other countries or go within Indonesia, you can actually still apply that.
Yeah, and I'll also say there's also Indonesian arts councils in the United States. There's one in New York that will also help sponsor and help artists find opportunities in the United States. And then when you come and tour, you know, the presenter, somebody like me is going to offer different types of support as well. And if you can create kind of a larger tour, there's opportunities where, so one of the things is, as part of my job as New England presenters, the different 6 New England states might join together. So we might find, I might be interested in a group, let's say from Japan, that I'm interested in bringing in. So I might reach out to the Japan Society, which is based in New York, and find out if they have some connections with that artist, if they're able to offer some support. Then I might go to some of the other university presenters in New England or some of the other partners that I have and ask them, you know, I can't afford to bring in this group from Japan by myself. But I'm really interested. I think this would be great for your organization. And so we also create partnerships that way. That's called sometimes block booking, where we'll try to get multiple organizations to come in to kind of create a little mini tour for artists and to bring down the cost both for the artists as well as the presenters. So I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But certainly I think grants are a wonderful idea, connecting with the culture organizations in the United States to see if they have opportunities as well.
I see. Thank you. Maybe just can add about how the experience in inviting people to come to Indonesia and best local practice that we had already, or maybe like your experience as an artist go touring to another places. What is the challenge, and you know what kind of the experience that you've got inviting people and also doing the touring outside?
As an artist for touring, the experience.
Yeah. And also as the presenter when you're inviting.
Oh well, I mean, how to find artists to invite? Well, I usually work with a team of creators also, right? And producers, especially producers. So this profession becomes crucial for at least for me, and from what I see that the producers have an important role within this discussion. I usually the intention is not always to find a new artist. I think the intentions may be mainly to network, to really know what's going on, happen in different contexts, and then to talk in the coffee shop, and then so usually we go to events like producers meetings or performing art meetings, and then we have an opportunity to sit together with everyone from different countries, different contexts, and then we could talk about what's going on with you and what's happening right now in your context, and then we sort of like exchange the stories, exchange the news or whatsoever, and then we could talk. I mean, because I sort of like because it's not just about finding a new artist for me. I think it's sort of like a problematic way to pointing out to find a new artist. It's more to like I prefer to saying it how we could move together. So I'm really interested with the idea about block booking. Yeah, block booking, because there is a sense of commoning, I think commoning or working together and we understand that the way we want to do this needs resources. And we come to the understanding that the resources are limited, but this is something important that we need to circulating and inside out, right? So the way of collaboratives like this is actually help not just to transfer the work from one point to another point, but is actually to accumulate the whole journey together, to piling up the experience, and to get to get a better understanding of, I think, how the world should be, to connect. But yeah, that's one thing, Kenya. So it's not mainly about finding a new artist. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got your point here, because when it comes to presenter or being a producer, our task is actually to orchestrate all the tour journey of an artist so that it could be effective and efficient in terms of showcasing their ideas in some context. I think that's what I got from your point of view. Maybe another students, or maybe like audiences in Zoom wants to give a questions right now, because I think I have a lot of questions, but I want to give you some opportunities to also ask question here. Yep. Just raise your hand first. So 1 and then 2 in front of the seat. Okay. Another one? Maybe we can have 3 questions first before we go to the next.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, and another 3. Yeah.
so my name is Michael, and I'm part of the Jakarta State University. And I want to ask maybe a little bit question of what you just tell. Something that really piqued my interest was you told that there's several groups that debuted in like the early year of your central stage development, and I kind of want to know that what like goes behind your mind of that, why you chose the artist, what makes you consider them to like debut with you at that event. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
We're going to go to the Deirdre right
Sure.
away. Okay.
Sure. So Center Stage has a set of criteria for artists. As I said, contemporary work, new work, and there are also some prosaic things, like you can't be more than 9 people. You have to have touring and performing experience at home. And these criteria are outlined on our website, so it's very clear what our expectations are. But when we're looking at Center Stage, we're not just looking, first we're looking for artistic quality and folks who sort of meet the criteria. And we also, it's not just my decision, we bring into the considerations and the discussions peer artists, presenters, funders, to look at the work, to think about the work, not only in and of itself, but in its possible context in the US. So we're looking at the work individually, but then ultimately we are looking at the work with the idea of seeing how it's going to fit into the total landscape. So for Center Stage, we're generally inviting 3 to 7 different ensembles from 2 to 3 different countries. So when we're looking at what we would call our season, we don't want to have all just dance. We don't want to necessarily have all just music. We're looking at how can we be additive to the conversations that are taking place around culture and community in the US. So we're looking at it within a very specific lens that is open enough to consider a lot of different work, but ultimately we're looking at presenting this work in a particular time and place, and looking at this work not just in and of itself, but in the larger context. of the U.S., which is very big and very diverse, and hosts work in many different ways in colleges and universities, in clubs, in small community centers. Artists host other artists in their spaces. You can be on proscenium stages. You can be in outdoor festivals. You could be presenting your work inside a repurposed church or a site-specific space. So, when we are looking at work, and the U.S. is also very lucky that we have access to a lot of work. Work that's made by Americans, work that comes from abroad. Sometimes we think we have access to the whole world, which is really not true. We have access when there are resources attached, just like anyone else. So right now, there's a lot of money to support artists from Canada in the U.S. or from the Nordic countries into the U.S. 10 years ago, if you had asked me this question, I would have said there's a lot of resources coming from the Netherlands to support artists or from Australia to support artists in the U.S. So, we think that we have access to everything, but like anything else, there are choices that are being made, and a lot of it is predicated on where the resources are to host this. So when we're looking at this landscape, it's a great privilege and pleasure for us to be able to invite artists from countries whose voices we don't regularly have access to. Because as I say all the time, great art is made all over the world. But sometimes how we get access to it is dictated by the resources that are available. So that's one of the great pleasures of Center Stage, is that we are, because our State Department is interested in those voices from places we don't ordinarily have access to. We have been able to successfully host artists from Algeria, from Morocco, from Tanzania, from Argentina, from Colombia, from Indonesia. And those artists don't often have a chance to be advocating their work, for their cultures, for their contexts, the ideas. And so when we're looking at work from those places, we're also looking at, well, how does that artist's work serve as a catalyst and as a co-conspirator, let's say, for the cultural dialogues that are happening in the U.S. So it's a complicated question. And often, sometimes these things come down to, I don't know, things that are not personal. It's like, well, you want to bring you as an artist, you're in a place where you have this fantastic project that needs to bring 12 people plus a crew of 10. That's wonderful, but my project can't support that because we just don't have the resources. And it's not a question of whether the project should be here or not. It clearly should, but sometimes, the realities get in the way. Not any one program can do everything. What we do try to do is to spread the information we've learned in meeting with artists to our colleagues. I mean, as you say, networking, in the coffee shop, at conferences, at gatherings, to share that work. Because we're all working in the same space. We're all interested in the same things. We're interested in being able to share, produce, host good work, and have conversations with our communities around that and have them involved. So you find your people and work with them to realize those kinds of projects.
And I'll just add to it, from a presenter's perspective, there's some very quick, concrete things I can also tell you. The first thing I'm gonna decide is this an artist or is this an artist group that fits for my campus, my community? Does it integrate right into, and so the first thing is like, is this an artist I'm interested in? If check, yes, then I go to the next thing. And the next thing is this person available or is this artistic group available, right? Because as a presenter, I have very specific slots available to me. So I can't present every day of the year, every day of the week. I have very specific things that are available to me. So are you available when I need you to be available? And then the third thing I'm gonna look at very quickly is, how much do you cost and what is your tech writer, right? So those are the three very quick and very quickly, right? I can within getting an email and kind of figuring out this information, I very quickly as a presenter can say, is this group viable or not viable, right? For just our own personal taste, our availability, and the cost. And the tech writer is a really important thing as an artist, right? That's going to be the piece of paper where it says, you need 12 projectors and you need, and I'm gonna be like, I don't have 12 projectors, so you're not gonna come to my venue. For me to rent 12 projectors is gonna cost me $40,000 US, so I'm not gonna do that, right? Oh, you have freight, you're gonna bring in some huge set. Well, I don't have time to build a set and to have you guys rehearse and to load in the 12 projectors, so I'm not gonna host you. So it's also some just very quick practical things. And when you're thinking about touring, trying to make your particular show as tourable, light on its feet, right? To have very simple, flexible tech, lighting, sound design is really important. And presenters are also looking at not just the cost of what it will cost to bring you in to pay your artist fee, but what all the costs are going to be to host you, at the hotel, to pay you for your food, but also how much money I'm going to have to spend to just put lights on the stage or the projections you need or some fancy backline, for music stuff or whatever. So all those things add up very quickly. And presenters generally know, and I'm sure you know as well for the dance festival, very quickly, can you produce this thing in the space you have or not?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that is interesting. But maybe I'm gonna ask you a quick question. Does it mean center stage is kind of closed selection, or is it usually open? For an artist maybe wants to get a support?
Center Stage, as I said, is a really tiny program. So, and we are coming to the end of Center Stage in 2025. And I don't know what will happen to the program after that. But as a model looking forward, if you're looking to produce this kind of work, because it is a partnership with our government, countries were primarily selected by our State Department, which, it's great to have some limits. There are so many countries in the world. I could have gone anywhere. Areas of interest, geographic areas of interest were identified by the State Department. New England Foundation for the Arts and my office weighed in, knowing well, is there a cultural infrastructure there in those countries that we know are supporting work that we know can be competitive on U.S. stages? And I mean competitive, can we answer the questions that Fiona just posed? Will it be of interest? Will it fit in these venues? Will it be available at the time that they need it, right? So when I say competitive, I don't mean like a foot race. I mean, will you be additive in the marketplace? And is your work at a place where you can be considered with Yo-Yo Ma or David Parsons Dance Company or, anybody else who wants to be touring out there? So the process of joining Center Stage was an open and transparent one. If you met the criteria, you could apply. Your work would be reviewed. And ultimately, we would choose 2 or 3 companies. Sometimes we had 300 applicants from a country, so it was highly competitive. And even though this program is sort of sunsetting, I would say that that level of sort of competition is out there for any artist who wants to tour in the States. I mean, Center Stage sort of created a model where you could see how this process unfolds. How do presenters find out about the work? How do you think about the work? Can you evaluate whether it's going to work in the US marketplace? And then come down to having a few opportunities for a few artists to be able to then present at any one given time. So even though Center Stage is sort of coming to an end, I think it's sort of the way our program was built was, embraced that, reflected that ecosystem. And that will continue whether we're sort of there to support it or not. I think one of the things that we were able to do is to highlight for a lot of communities the importance of hosting an artist beyond just the performance. So Center Stage from the beginning was very insistent on having an artist in residence in a community for a half week or a week, so that they could share more of their work with these communities off stage. but also so that the communities could share who they were with these artists. I mean, sometimes a presenter is just about like, what can an artist do for me, my organization, my students, my community? And we're always like, think about these artists as if you had discovered you had a long lost relative from Indonesia who was coming to visit you for the first time. You know, who would you invite? Where would you like them to visit? Who would you invite them to have a meal with? Those were all the ways that we, you know, envision that the guest-host relationship is as important to think about. So I'm hoping Center Stage has helped move the needle a little bit that way with the presenting community and thinking about the ways that artists share who they are, not just on stage, but off.
Thank you, Deidre. Such a helpful answer because I really want to know about the possibility for any artist that want to join Center Stage, but then you explain kind of like clearly. And now we're going to the next questions that is come from
Situ tadi kan.
di depan. Iya, itu.
Good afternoon. My name is Raufanda, and I have a few questions for you. Wait.
You mean who? to all of them
To
or?
all of them.
Oh, to all of them. Okay.
The question is, how can you have the idea for doing collaboration with Indonesian culture? And how's American people reaction who learn and watch the culture of Indonesia? And any other purpose that how can you be doing this project with Indonesian people and especially for music? Thank you.
Jadi maksudnya kayak kolaborasi sama
Iya.
seniman Indonesia,
Iya,
terus bagaimana reaksi dari
orang
audiens
Amerika.
American audience
Ya,
gitu.
dan bagaimana bisa kepikiran untuk melakukan apa kolaborasi antara budaya Amerika dan budaya Indonesia gitu di
Oh,
ininya,
okay.
gitu.
So if I can, I can conclude. The question is more about how you usually collaborate with Indonesian artists, especially in music, yeah, tadi in music, and how the reaction of the American audience after you kind of like give them a tour there so far. And also, how do you make sure the exchange of the culture is happen between the U.S. and Indonesia, for example? Anyone who wants to answer first?
I can say it briefly. So Wesleyan University has been hosting Indonesian artists for many, many years, and right now we actually have an exchange with a court dancer who comes and teaches at Wesleyan for a full year. Every single year we get a new court dancer, and back in 2018 we actually hosted the Sultan and the Royal Court dancers and musicians, and from Georgia. And we had a sold-out audience. We had an extraordinary amount of people come from all over Connecticut, up from New York to see those performances. We hosted a lot of dinners. We brought those artists into the classroom. I think the mayor gave the Sultan a key to the city. So there was a very kind of warm and enthusiastic welcome. Most of our students at Wesleyan at some point are going to take a world music or dance class. And actually, I mean, a fair number of our students take gamelan classes. We have beginner and advanced gamelan classes. We have community and youth gamelan classes. And so we have both kind of a Connecticut community as well as a campus culture that's very, very engaged in global art in general and have a really strong connection. We have two wonderful full-time professors who teach Indonesian music in our music department as well, Professor Sumarsam and Professor Harjito. And so we just have I think a very long and strong history with Indonesia in particular. And so there's a deep, deep level of respect and admiration and a deep sort of welcoming for Indonesian artists on our campus in particular.
Thank you. Maybe Deidre wants to add something, or Josh?
yeah, I think the idea of collaboration, what you ask about, it's not something that's strange, no? That the cultural interaction, it is something that we need to encourage more. And I think it is something beautiful that happens everywhere. And I hope it's true in everywhere that we could see this type of a cultural interaction. Yeah, I don't think I have much to say about this, but in a way, maybe we could all think, imagining the cultural interactions also happens both ways. So it's not just happen over there in Wesleyan University or in America, but also how we could establish the cultural interaction happens here, maybe in your university, in your university, or in our local context as well. Because cultural interaction is not just about a different countries, but like within Jakarta, we basically are very what you call diverse in a way. You know, so the intercultural it's always there in Jakarta. So yeah, I think it is something that we need to encourage more and happens not just in an institution way, but also in a daily aspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like when it comes to respect, I think it must happen in anywhere in the world. I mean, like in American culture, Indonesian culture, or everywhere culture, I think what we have to do is actually respect to each other because we have our own history and journey. Yeah, I think that's hope it answer your questions. And we're gonna go to another one before we move to online questions. Okay. Kindly tell the questions and to whom you want to address the questions.
So my name is Hendrik Willem. I'm from Jakarta State University. Last year, our campus had visitation from Ashley Campbell, and maybe you're familiar with the American music abroad. So the event was held on my campus, and my question is, do the artists from Indonesia perform or did the same thing in the US? That's my question.
Pardon, siapa tadi nama ada yang
Hendrik.
datang ke kampus?
Yeah.
Namanya
Ashley Campbell.
Ashley Campbell,
Yeah.
yang adalah musician.
Iya.
And the question, pertanyaannya adalah,
Dia dari kedutaan juga kemarin at Amerika. Dari dia ngunjungin kampus kita dan itu kolaborasi juga kan. Jadi dia dari Nashville, dia presentasiin lagu country ke kampus kita. Ada apakah musisi-musisi dari Indonesia yang dikirim ke sana melakukan hal yang sama? Mereka ngunjungin kampus juga atau melakukan hal yang lain mungkin?
Oh, okay. So there's one guest named Ashley Campbell, who is actually, am I correct? It's a country musician that visit their campuses and they do the touring, the educational programs. And the question would be, is there a same or maybe like a similar program that artists Indonesians did there in America or maybe like at your place?
That would be nice, but there isn't. So I know the program that Ashley toured with is called American Music Abroad, right? And that is also a State Department funded program. And like many State Department funded programs, it is about introducing artists from the US to countries abroad. So there is no exact reciprocal program there. To be able to invite an Indonesian artist similarly to travel to the U.S. Not in the same. It's not a reciprocal program. No.
So usually the Indonesian artists come to the show and then right away they go on tour. Not really doing a sharing session or maybe like.
Oh no, they do sharing sessions, but it's
not in the campuses.
Not in the U.S. Just while they're here in Indonesia. I mean, it's it's an export program for U.S. artists abroad. That program cannot invite artists from abroad to the U.S. Yeah.
Sudah
Did I
dipahami ya?
answer the question
Okay.
correctly?
Thank
Sorry.
you. Yeah, because I have two other more questions that comes from audiences online. The first one comes from Tiara. Maybe Fiona or Deidra will help with these questions. Like, what are some common challenge international artists face when touring in the USA, and how can they overcome them?
I think the idea of touring in the U.S. is sort of like The Wizard of Oz. Do you know the movie The Wizard of Oz? It's like this ideal out there. It's like you want to follow the yellow brick road and go to the U.S. I grew up in the U.S. I'm an American. I think it's pretty great, but I don't necessarily think it's the best place for an artist to tour, frankly, from abroad. I think that as we've been able to see over the last 10 years, and especially with COVID, there are so many cool places to tour. And I say that because the U.S. right now is a very, very tough place to tour, and an expensive one. Visa costs have just gone up. If you're a small company of, let's say, 4 to 10 people, it can cost you upwards of $6,000 to get visas for your group. And you're not even guaranteed you're going to get visas for that money. You spend that money, or your agent does, or your producer does, and you are not guaranteed visas. So that is a barrier. And that's a big barrier. Also, I would say that the reason to tour to the U.S. is because in order to do it successfully, you need to develop relationships, and you need to really spend some time looking at what's being presented and where. And you need to ask yourself why you want to be in the U.S. I think it needs to be more than just, I want to see New York, or I want to visit LA, or Miami seems really cool. I really think that you have to think about why you think your work will connect with U.S. audiences, and why you want to connect with U.S. audiences, because the barriers are real and significant.
Yeah, I think it's connected to the next question that is similar content and context. It's like, what legal and visa consideration should international artists be aware of when planning a tour in the USA, like legal and visa considerations?
Okay, so visas are one, taxes are another. And, it's not your responsibility as an artist to manage those on your own, right? But it is your responsibility as an artist to think about those questions. So thank you for that very smart question. Because as I said, the art should lead, but really the thing that comes right after that is, are the resources there, and is the capacity there? So some of the things to think about are visas, taxes. Also, the U.S. is big, just the way Indonesia is big. So when you're thinking about a tour, it's not always so easy just to get in a van and go. You cannot drive from New York to Los Angeles. And you need to fly, and it's 6 hours. And then there are places where it's not so easy to get to. And how do you find out about that? Okay, on the centerstageus.org webpage, there's a page that says resources. And on that page is a link to a lot of mobility forward resources. I'm all about mobility. I'm here traveling because I love to travel. I'm always happy to invite artists to the U.S. I've made my career about international exchange and doing projects that are difficult, maybe because they're difficult. So there are resources out there, not just about touring in the U.S., but mobility in general. And there are links to some of the conferences and convenings we've been talking about here, organizations who do that. So check that out. We try to keep that pretty up to date because we are a small program and we can only produce a certain number of companies, but we fully acknowledge that there should be more mobility, that we are better together if we can all talk and share our work together. So check that out. Specifically, there is a May 15th deadline coming up for the ISPA conference, International Society of Performing Artists. There is a fellowship that is actually funded by the Netherlands that makes it possible for Indonesians to apply by May 15th. And ISPA is an organization of presenters and artist managers and producers that works internationally on issues of mobility. It's a part expo, part convening and conference. So there's an opportunity if you are a creative producer interested in that aspect of the business, check that out. And there's a link to not necessarily that fellowship call, which is May 15th deadline, but to ISPA on our website.
Thank you. So I think we're almost getting there for the time, for the session time. But before we close this session, it's actually going to be good if we're hearing from each of you about the experience or maybe like a statement when it comes to, because we're talk a lot about management, about the curatorial, about the behind the scene work, because what we know is actually when it comes to performing arts, it's about the glam and glitter, about the applause, but actually there's a lot of work behind it, and we have to do the networking, we have to strategizing, we have to do the planning. But right now in front of us is students from Performing Arts University, so maybe they kind of like want to know, or maybe like curious, or maybe like want to know more about the kind of role that we had right now. So maybe the statement that I want to hear as a closing for the session is how to balancing about knowing the arts as a creativity part, and also about the either business or management, or the another skill that we have to add in terms of being a creative or an artist or whatever it is in this kind of industry, like how we have to get along with it. Maybe started from Josh.
It's sort of like a tips and tricks. Well, yeah. I mean, if you guys want to be an art practitioners, an artists, or producers, presenters, there's many profession comes along within arts ecosystem, and I think everyone would play an important role within the landscape. But I always believe that what drive us the most is one is the passion, and the second one is the willing to work. I think, yeah. I'm sorry, there is no sugar in it. I'm trying to, but okay. But yeah, the passion are needed, because how we are supposed to excel or to do what we want to do if we doesn't love it, I think. Yeah. And then after that there's comes everything, the boundaries, the parameters that comes within the realities, and it's fine. I mean, you guys now in the college, and you sooner you will find that the challenge is not just things that written on the textbook, but what comes in a real life, I think, yeah, how we interact to other people, how we do the networking, how we read, and how we read and how we choose what we read, and a lot of stuff. And I think, yeah, I think that's it for now. Like a passion and the willing to work. Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. And we'll go to Fiona.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's about dreaming big, being creative, being passionate, but also balancing that with the practical. So really thinking about, how your project can move around into different spaces, right? What audiences you want to be able to experience your art, the costs involved with it, the freight. If you're a puppet company, you're coming to the United States, right? How are those puppets going to get there? What is going to be the cost of shipping those puppets from one place to the next, right? So just thinking about those practical things, getting really good documentation, filming, especially for international audiences, right? The best thing in order for a presenter to get excited about your work is to be able to send them a very short, 1 to 3 minute video that shows your passion, that shows what you're about in a very kind of quick way. So I think it's really about exploring your creativity, your passion, really putting something out there that feels meaningful to you personally, and then balancing that with sort of the practical business aspects of how you're going to move that around and who's going to be able to see it.
Thank you. And the last one, Deidre.
I would say that you need to think about how you're telling your story. I think that means being very clear in your art and knowing who your audience is and being able to tell the story on stage. I think it means being able to tell your story through your marketing materials, through your promotional materials, through your contextual materials. I come with certain contextual knowledge, but I'm sure I don't know the context in which you're making your work, and I want to be able to understand that. So you need to think about who are you telling your story to, and what is that story, and to be able to tell it in 3 different ways: on stage, through your marketing, promotional, and contextual materials, and through your budget. I always say a budget is another way of telling your story. So those are, to me, are the 3 key things as an arts administrator. And make a mistake once, fine. Don't make the same mistake twice. Okay? Learn from your mistake, move on, make a new mistake. That's really the best thing. That's how you know you're getting really good. And I'm going to keep doing what I do until I start repeating myself. Luckily, there are plenty of mistakes still out there for me to make. So, I always feel like keep going, don't make the same mistake twice. Acknowledge that, take that as a learning thing, and move to the next. But yeah, learn how to tell your story at least 3 ways. And if you come up with a 4th one, tell me, because I'd like to know it.
Thank you, Deidre. Give an applause for our 3 speakers. Thank you for addressing interesting topics and also about all the insight and ideas. I think I put 4 big notes here. It is important to have cultural exchange so that we can understand and learn about each other and also the world. And also do the touring, and also let the arts guide you, as what you say. And another point that I write is various ways to find funding. So Indonesian artists don't get pessimist, because we're gonna find a way. And then I think the most important when it comes to touring and become selected in the criteria is when it comes to the artists themselves, the resources, and the budget. So I think that's the whole point about Inside Out: Why, When, and How to Tour in the USA. Kenya Rinonche, and I'm giving back the session to Hasna.
All right, we give another hand for our amazing speakers along with our lovely moderator for today's very fruitful session. Hope you can kickstart your career by discovering programs and people that you can connect with to help you obtain new skills that may be needed in your future career. So earlier in this event, we asked the audience a question, if you remember, and the question was, true or false, the term performance art got its start in the 1960s in the United States? And the correct answer to that is true. It started in the 1960s and became widely used in the 1970s. It was originally used to describe any live artistic event. Shout out to today's lucky one at Jasmine Arley _ from Instagram for answering correctly. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in our social media quiz. Don't forget to tune in next time and catch a chance to get a live shout out from us. If you find yourself enjoying this event, you can also stay updated with our upcoming events by visiting our website at www.atamerica.or.id. You can also collaborate with us and create more insightful events on our website. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, X, and also YouTube at AT America. With that, thank you so much again for joining us today. My name is Hasna. See you on the next At America event. Bye bye, everybody.